Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. I'm your humble French tarot reader slash deck goblin marine, and today we're going to be talking about favorite tarot and oracle decks as well as favorite books for the month of March. March was a great month for decks. I have found some truly new favorites that I can totally see ending up in my favorite decks of the year. I also read some amazing books, so we're going to be talking about it. As per usual, I'm going to be putting timestamps so that if you guys are just here for the tarot and oracle decks, then you're welcome to jump ahead. I will also make sure to put in the description box all the names of the decks and the books I'm talking about, so if you're ever thinking, what the heck is this French frog saying, it's all gonna be in the description box. If I have time, I'll put links, but at least I'll make sure to put names. Down there, you will also find all my social media links, my second channel, The Waves of Your Soul Readings, where I actually put all of my decks to good use and post pickup, high reading, monthly tarot guidance for you guys. And I did want to take a little moment here to thank everyone for the lovely birthday wishes, as it was my birthday at the end of March and I received lots of lovely comments, lots of lovely DMs, messages. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you for all of your well wishes, for all of your support. I've been doing YouTube now for a few years and I'm always blown away by this lovely community that we have created together. I'm just so thankful for every single one of you, whether you are watching, commenting, whatever it may be. I'm just grateful for your presence, and I wanted to take this moment to thank you for being here. And I also wanted to thank everyone for the lovely support on my second channel, The Waves of Your Soul Reading, as we reached 500 subscribers actually the day of my birthday, which was a lovely birthday present. I absolutely adore reading the cards for you. I love being able to be my full deck goblin self on this channel, share my passion for the cards, share the decks. I'm enjoying all of that. It makes me super happy. But reading the cards truly is something that I adore doing, so I'm so thankful that you allow me to do that on that other channel as well. I just feel like between those two spaces that I have carved out, now I get to really explore and expand my passion for the cards fully, and it makes me super happy. And I'm just really grateful that you're along for the ride and that you seem to be enjoying going on this adventure with me as well. So I just wanted to take a moment to say a huge thank you, to share some gratitude. Hope everyone has had a good month of March. It was very chaotic, a lot of stuff going on, so I hope everyone is taking good care of themselves. And let's talk about books and decks, right? To forget about the dumpster fire that is the world. Why don't we do that? Nice little distraction for an hour. Let's cozy in, let's chat, and let's do this. We'll start with books. Let's go. So in the month of March, I actually read a lot because my health wasn't so great. Some of you might know I navigate the waters of chronic pain, chronic illness. I live with dynamic disability, meaning that some days I'm more mobile than others. And since January, I've decided to massively reduce my amount of time I would watch TV or Netflix or movies or whatever, and dedicate all of my bedbound time to reading books, which actually means that my reading has gone through the roof in the last few months, as every time I'm bedbound, every time I'm flared up, I pick up a book instead of deciding to watch a TV show or watch YouTube. So I've got a lot of books to talk about. Some of them I loved, some of them not so much, but I still want to talk about them as they might work for you more than me. All of those books I read either on my tablet or I picked up from my local library, so I don't have physical copy. So I'm going to make sure to show the image here. Again, all the details will be in the description box. Before we get into it, just know I always share my mini book reviews spoiler free, so I try to make sure that whatever I share with you, you can find on the first chapter or at the back of the book, just so you guys can enjoy it fully, because I hate spoiler reviews. Okay, that pisses me off, so I don't want to do that to you guys. Let's start with a fun duology that is a YA fantasy, which is by Nikki Popredo, and the two books are called Bonesmiths and Ghostsmiths. In this story, we follow Ren, who is a bonesmith, meaning that her magic can control the bone of the dead. She is what we call a necromancer. Her family have been necromancers for generations. She comes from a long line of people who can work with this particular bone magic, and she's been training her whole life for a specific trial that, if she succeeds, she'll be able to live her dream of fighting against the dead, who in this particular world always manage to rise until someone with magic like hers can disconnect their spirit and finally put the dead to peace. So she's been training all her life for this trial. to prove herself and finally become a bonesmith officially, to live her life, to live her dream, to step into her family's legacy. However, as you can imagine, the trial doesn't go as planned, and she gets exiled to the other end of the realm where she has lost her honor and her pride, until a very important royal comes to visit this particular fort she's been exiled to, and she gets a chance to finally prove herself as something happens there, which gives her a chance to finally prove herself. So this is a duology, so I won't say too much, obviously, as there's 2 books in that story, but I enjoyed it. It was not my favorite read of the year. However, it was a fun, fast-paced read. If you enjoy YA, and if you enjoy things that are related to, obviously, necromancy, if you like the idea of magic being related to raising the spirit of the dead, potentially having to deal with people who have died in a manner quite violent versus people who have died peacefully, then I think you might enjoy this particular read. Not my favorite read of the month, as I definitely have some amazing 5-star found, but I still enjoyed it. I read the 2 books and it was a fun read. The next couple of books I want to talk about are by T. Kingfisher, who, by the way, you guys, I need to say a huge thank you to everyone who on my channel over the years commented to me that I should check out T. Kingfisher, because she has slowly but surely become one of my favorite authors. So huge thank you to everyone who commented, told me I should check her out, because I am becoming obsessed, okay? I have not read one book by T. Kingfisher so far that I don't like. I'm slowly making my way through all of her books and I can't get enough. In the month of March, I actually read a couple of her books from her series. The first book is Paladin's Grace. The second book is Paladin's Strength. This is a series of 4 books, but each book is a standalone. So if you just want to get a little taste of this world, you can just read the first book, Paladin's Grace, and have a nice little read. Perfect palate cleanser, in my opinion, especially as T. Kingfisher's writing and world building is wonderful. She always mixes different kind of genres between fantasy, horror, fairy tales, always with interesting characters. So in this particular series of books, again, each one kind of a standalone, paladins have been serving their god, the Saint of Steel, for years. So they have been chosen by this particular god to defend the helpless against evil, until one day their god dies. And we don't know why, we don't know what happens, but the god dies and all of the paladins, all of the god's holy warriors go mad. They go mad. Most of them die. They either kill themselves or they go in a killing frenzy, meaning that people have to put them down. And a very few people, actually 7 paladins, survive the death of their god. Those men are brokenhearted. They've lost their main reason to live. They are traumatized. They are broken inside, but they are trying to keep on. They're trying to keep hope, each in their own different way. And as you can imagine, in every single book of this particular series about the paladins, we follow a different one. So in the first book, Paladin's Grace, we follow Stefan, who's one of the few paladins who survived the death of his god. His life feels completely grey. He feels completely broken. He is acting kind of like on automatic pilot. He's lost the taste for life, but he still shows up because all of his brothers and sisters, the other paladins who survived, have been taken under the wing of another clerical order in this particular world. And so he feels like he owes this clerical order some kind of like work, effort, and labor to show up as a way to say thank you for them, to take them under their wings, even though for him, truly, life has lost all meaning, until he meets a young woman who is a perfumer, and suddenly his life is gonna change. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Again, I don't want to give you any spoilers, but know that this story, we have a wonderful kind of like murder, who's done it kind of vibe, murder mystery. We have the wonderful fantasy world setting with magic and paladins, holy warriors. We have this particular main character, Stefan, who's broken, who's trying to find a meaning in life, and the other main character, the young woman, Alexa, I believe her name is, or Alexia, I can't remember, who is a perfumer, and so her side of the story is fascinating because everything to her relates to smell. She's always compared, like every time she enters into a room, she can identify the smell and everything. So through the smell also, you're picking up a lot about the world that T. Kingfisher explains. There's a little bit of romance in this book. a very emotional, touching story with also obviously a little bit of, like I said, murder mystery, a little bit of adventure. Honestly, so great, you guys, so great. And for those of you who like to read books who center older people, not just, fantasy focusing on like young chosen one who are in their 20s, in the Paladins books, all of the characters are in their 30s or 40s, which is also so refreshing, who are a little bit older than just your stereotypical like early 20s kind of fantasy hero. So I love the Paladin's grace. And the second book, Paladin's Strengths, follow another paladin from this particular world. This time we follow Estevan, who is on a quest to root out evil from the country until he meets an unusual nun who is trying to find her fellow sisters who have been kidnapped. Again, I'm gonna keep it super spoiler free, but just know that it's so great. If you are looking for, again, stories with amazing world building, characters who are a little bit older, some romance, some interesting like fantasy world building, characters who are complex but touching, I cannot recommend Taking Fisher's book enough. And also this particular Paladin series, so fun. I still have 2 books to read from this series. I'm gonna paste them out as they are fantastic palette cleansers because they are standalone kind of. It's nice to put them in between bigger series, so totally recommend. After I read those kind of fantasy books, I got in a little bit of a dystopian / post-apocalyptic mood. The world around us is falling apart, so why not read about the world falling apart in book form as well, right? What's better way to escape the trauma that the world is and the chaos that the world around us is than reading stories about zombies and about the apocalypse. That was the mood I was in. I was like, give me all the post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of vibe. So I started with a particular trilogy by Sarah Lyon Fleming. There's 3 books in this one, which are called Until the End of the World and After. And the last book is called All the Stars in the Sky. I was looking for a post-apocalyptic book, and this one came up quite a lot as an easy read. And I was like, you know what? To start me into this post-apocalyptic style, this post-apocalyptic genre, I was like, let me start with something easy. And this one had been recommended a lot online as literally reading The Walking Dead. And I can totally confirm that this is what it feels like. This is a zombie story. It's as you can, if you guys have watched The Walking Dead, this is very much that, but in book form. You are following a group of characters, specifically focusing on Cassandra, who is the main character. She's actually the daughter of some hippie preppers. So her parents were preppers. They taught her how to fend for herself, how to cook, how to farm, all of that. But she lives her life in the city as both her parents have sadly passed away when she was younger. And she lives her life in the city until one day a virus starts spreading that make people turn into Walking Dead, into zombies. So very typical zombie apocalypse stories. There's a virus, people start turning violent till they become zombies and start eating other people. Cassandra, the main character living in the city, finds herself surrounded with her friend as being the only person who kind of has any kind of knowledge on how to survive, as her parents were preppers. And so she suddenly becomes in charge of this group of people that she's gathered around herself, her friends and friends' sisters, things like that. Then she decides to take them under their wing and try and bring everyone to her parents' country home, where they are hopefully gonna wait out this particular apocalypse. This truly feels like The Walking Dead, the TV show, but in book form. You are following these different characters. There's this themes of found family, of people who find each other and who try to survive in a world that's dying, where literally the whole world is against them. They are trying to make do, they're trying to survive, they're trying to find a beacon of hope, they're trying to rebuild a sense of life in a world surrounded by death and despair. It's a very easy to read trilogy. Obviously, as you can imagine, with any kind of post-apocalyptic stories, you're gonna lose characters that you really bond with. There's a lot of gut punches, but beautiful story of found family, of hope, of trying to save people in a world that's determined to die, and a good old zombie story too. So honestly, I flew through all 3 books. If you're looking for like a post-apocalyptic kind of book, but that is easy to read, totally this one is. It doesn't feel dense. Again, not my favorite read of the month, but definitely a fun enough story that I flew through all 3 books and enjoyed myself very much. One of my 5-star read of the month though. This is definitely one of my favorite reads of the year so far. We have to talk about The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. In this particular book, we follow a little girl called Melanie, and she's very special. Every morning she waits in her cell for the sergeant people to tie her up and take her to class. She sometimes jokes that she won't bite, but they don't believe her. And the truth is because she's a zombie kid, and she's part of a class of other kids who are particularly infected with this zombie virus. Whilst most books that focus on these kind of zombie stories, post-apocalyptic stories, always focus on the survivor, this particular book is actually from the point of view of a little kid who is considered a zombie. So it totally changed the point of view, totally changed the way you look at the world, especially as this little kid, Melanie, is so smart. Everyone treats her like a monster. She actually has feelings, just like another kid. She has feelings, she understands the world around her, she has emotions that are so strong, and you end up rooting for her so much, even though you know that other people around her look at her like a monster. This book definitely reminded me of The Last of Us, for those of you who are familiar with like the HBO show and the video game, because in this particular world, this post-apocalyptic world, the virus that turns people into The Walking Dead has very like Last of Us kind of qualities in the way that it comes out, which again I won't spoil, but if you guys have seen The Last of Us, I think you can definitely pick up on that. The physicalities of people who are sick, zombies, are definitely reminding me of The Last of Us monsters, except in this book, The Girl with All the Gift, we actually follow the main point of view of a little girl who is infected but who still has feelings, who is compassionate, who's smart, and who just wants to belong. And I cannot tell you how amazing this book is. It is set in this post-apocalyptic Britain, and it's such a beautiful story about the cost of survival, about what we're willing to do to children to save ourselves, and about the power of education and the power of compassion. And my God, you guys, if there's one post-apocalyptic / zombie kind of book that I can recommend in this particular video is this one, The Girl with All the Gifts. It's a standalone one book. I think there's a second book in this part of this world, but it doesn't follow the same characters. So this one definitely feels like its own story, kind of a standalone. And I cannot tell you how much this book touched my heart. It was so wonderful. I cried, was blown away by just how unique it was. I really loved it. The last book that I read, part of this little post-apocalyptic kind of vibe, and then we'll move on to sci-fi and fantasy again, is one that was recommended a ton when I was looking for post-apocalyptic kind of books to read. The Passage by Justin Cronin came up a lot, and I decided to give it a go. And this is a chunker. This is truly in the same scope of epic fantasy, but put it in this like dystopian post-apocalyptic world. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, and I'm a little bit disappointed because honestly, when you are looking for post-apocalyptic books, The Passage is like one of the most hyped up. Everyone is saying it's the best thing ever. Didn't quite work for me. Honestly, almost put me into a reading slump because I couldn't wait to finish that damn book, which was so long. But it might work for you guys, so I'm still gonna give you a little summary, as apparently everyone else loves it, so I'm definitely in the minority here. In this particular book, there's a virus which was tweaked by the army to create a certain kind of weapon, actually ends up turning people into almost what we would call modern day vampires, people turn violent and wanting to eat other people's blood. Obviously that doesn't go too good for the Earth and the rest of the population, and bad shit happens, as you can imagine. This particular story actually spans across several centuries. We start the story following an FBI cop, Wolf Gast, who's in charge of finding prisoners meant for the death sentence to become those kind of like subject tests for the virus for the army. Right at the beginning, when the army is doing trial and error, trying to build this biological weapon, we follow this particular cop, FBI cop, who's picking up death sentence prisoners and offering them a second chance as test subjects. This particular cop does his job until these like military powers and government powers tell him that the next test subject they need is a little girl. Obviously, that doesn't sit so good with him, and he decides to take the little girl under wing. At the same moment, the military discovers that all of the test subjects are actually turning into very, very dangerous vampire-like monsters. Shit hits the fan, the virus, there's an outbreak, and suddenly the world is facing all of these like vampiric kind of monsters. And so we actually follow different characters across decades, across centuries. We follow this little girl story, Amy, who's been like picked up under the wing of this particular cop for centuries, as she's quite special, but again, I won't tell you too much why. And whilst it is an interesting, very large scope story about hope, fate, survival, that I found that I could not wait to get to the end of this book, because there are so many characters in this book and it spans across decades, even centuries, and sometimes we were spending way too long on characters I did not care for, and I just couldn't wait to flip through the chapter until we were talking again about a character I enjoyed, and that happened a little bit too much for me, that this made this book quite hard to get through. However, I wanted to finish it as it's one of the most like hyped up book when it comes to like post-apocalyptic dystopian stories. The world building is great. The vampires are definitely super scary. You feel like there's a lot at stake. You feel the horror element for sure, but I just couldn't care for enough characters in this one to be completely moved. And like I said, it was so long, it almost put me into a reading slump. Didn't quite work for me, but I'd love to know if you guys have read it. Again, you might enjoy it because I'm definitely in the minority there, as it's a very well rated book otherwise. After that, I definitely needed a change of pace and a change of genre, and I decided to go into sci-fi, which I love reading, but I don't read as much as fantasy, but sci-fi is definitely like my second most favorite kind of genre for sure. And I finally got round to reading Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and my god, you guys, this is my second 5-star of the month. Definitely The Girl with All the Gifts and Project Hail Mary. If I had two books to recommend for you guys, these are the two. They jump straight away into some of my favorite books of the year. For Project Hail Mary, maybe one of my favorite books ever. I absolutely adore this one. Can't recommend it enough. And actually, this book is being turned into a movie in 2026. The main character will be played by Ryan Gosling. So if you guys are wanting to pick up this book, I would recommend you do so before the movie. It's the same author who did The Martian, and dare I say, I love The Martian, but dare I say Project Hail Mary is even better. Honestly, I loved it so much. I've recommended it to all of my friends. My dad is reading it right now. He's loving it, so I cannot recommend this one enough. In Project Hail Mary, we actually follow Ryland Grace, who wakes up on a spaceship and he doesn't remember anything. He's lost his memory. He doesn't know why he's here, where he is, what's his name, what is he doing on a spaceship. He's the sole survivor on this spaceship and he doesn't know what he's doing there. And so you follow his story as he slowly but surely starts to remember that he is indeed the sole survivor of a desperate last chance mission to save all of humanity. You know, no pressure. Ryland knows when he wakes up is that he's been asleep for a very, very long time, and that he's just awakened to find himself millions of miles away from Earth with nobody around him but the two corpses of his crewmates. And so whilst his memories are fuzzily starting to return, Ryland, the main character, realized that he now has an impossible task. He's been hurtling through space on this tiny ship to try and puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery and conquer threat to humanity. And whilst Ryland is on this quest of trying to remember what he's doing there and trying to remember his mission of this scientific project he's supposed to lead to save humanity, who's facing a very huge threat back on Earth, he encounters an unlikely ally who you will fall in love with. I will not tell you more. Again, I'll keep it spoiler free, but let me tell you that this is a sci-fi book with heart, which is so unique, right? Sci-fi can be quite serious, it can be quite intense. This book has all of the stakes of your regular sci-fi spaceship, let's save the Earth kind of vibe, but it's heartwarming, it is funny. Literally, first chapter, read the first page, you will crack out laughing. The fact that we follow Rylan, who literally wakes up on a ship and doesn't remember anything, makes him so relatable because he is acting the way we would act if we woke up on a spaceship and we're like, what the heck am I doing here? What the heck is going on? It is so relatable. It's funny, it's hopeful sci-fi, which I didn't know I needed, but actually I do. I love hopeful sci-fi. The science, there's a lot of science, but it's easy to understand. It's suspense and high stakes, but there is just so much heart. I loved this book, and when you get to the character Rocky, let me tell you, he's one of my favorite characters ever. I love Rocky so much, and I cannot wait to watch the movie next year. I would love to know if you guys have read this book, because for me, it was definitely 5 stars, maybe even 6 stars. I don't know, you guys, I told you I recommended it to everyone. Such a great story. Let's go back to fantasy. We'll finish with fantasy with one trilogy and one standalone. That's what I finished my month of March with. I finally read the Aurelian Cycles. It's a trilogy by Rosaria Munda, who is a Spanish author, I believe. The first book is called Fireborn, the second book is called Flamefall, and the third book is called Fury Song. This is a YA fantasy that focuses on dragon riders, but with a heavy focus also on politics and social structures. And the best way I can describe this book is Plato's Republic meets dragons. Okay, imagine Plato's republics with the idea of exploring social structures, the idea of exploring society and power and the people in power, and potentially people wanting to do a revolution to promote democracy in a world that is set up on feudalism and on imposing lordship and all of that, and add dragons to the mix. That's the best way I can describe it. And in this particular one, we follow Annie. Annie is an orphan daughter of farmers who were burned to death by dragon lords because they couldn't give enough of their food to pay their taxes. And the second main character that we follow is Lee, who is the orphan son of a dragon lord family. So Annie is the orphan daughter of peasant farmers who were killed by a dragon lord, and the other main POV is Lee, the orphan son of dragon lords who were killed in a revolution by people who decided to kill all of the nobility and take over as they were sick of those dragon lords and their dragons, like traumatizing and threatening the world. So both of these characters grow up in the same orphanage, and whilst they are coming from opposite side of this particular societal world, they end up growing in friendship. A brutal revolution changed their world. In this particular brutal revolution, all of the nobility, who were the only people who could ride dragons, were killed by the populace. Now the revolutionaries have decided that everyone gets a chance to ride dragons, even lowborns. So these two main characters actually chosen to become dragon riders, and they are being raised in an elite dragon riding fleet as part of this new society post a revolution. So the whole trilogy focuses on these two characters that technically should be on opposite sides, and it creates such an interesting, fascinating story where we understand the cost of revolution, we understand the cost of oppression, and it follows the development of friendship and compassion in a world that's trying to divide people and antagonize people. The main characters are intelligent and strong, and it's just such a rich theme with this particular one. There's great themes of revolution, oppression, and the cost of ideals versus reality. Truly, in this whole trilogy, you understand that sometimes when people are trying to create a revolution, when people are trying to completely change a society and they're wanting to create good in the world, they might end up doing bad things to create good. And what is the cost of that? What is the emotional cost of that? What is the effect on people's life? The whole trilogy is fantastic, but by the time you get to book 3, my god, you're gonna cry, you're gonna scream, you're gonna be like livid. There's so much going on. It's a page turner. There's definitely like some emotional gut punches. The relationship between the characters, the social political climate, this particular society being torn between servitude and fairness. It is so good. I really enjoyed book 1 and 2, but book 3 made me go to bed way too late, okay? Way too late. So truly, if you enjoy the idea of Plato's Republic meets dragons, I cannot recommend this enough. And we're gonna finish by a nice little standalone called Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames. I'm not sure how you say that. It's such a fun, standalone, fun fantasy, a nice twist on fantasy, which I really enjoyed as a palate cleanser because it has a unique point of view. In this particular book, we follow Clay Cooper, who used to be part of a band of warriors, a band of adventurers, very like stereotypical heroes, you know, from D&D or from other fantasy stories. He was part of a group of adventurers who were legends. They were all his best friends. They spent their youth killing monsters, saving princesses, and just being damn heroes until the band breaks apart and all of them grow soft, fat, drunk, and old. And they spend their years and they've all gone their own way, living their life. Some of them have kids, some of them have become drunkards, some of them are just trying to get by, but they definitely have left their legendary hero self behind. Until one day, one of his former adventurer friend, Gabriel, comes knocking on his door with a desperate quest to go save his daughter, who is being held captive in a city that has been sieged by a huge monster horde on the other side of the world. And the whole idea of this book is wondering, are the boys gonna get back together? The way that this is written is, imagine a rock metal band who was super famous in their youth and then they broke up, you know, they went their own way, and now 20 years later, are they gonna reunite for one last tour? Right? Well, it's the same thing with this particular band of adventurers who've now grown old and fat and who are definitely not as strong and agile, fit as they used to be. Are they gonna get back together for this one last quest? Are they gonna manage to get the band together to save one of the adventurers' daughter? And if they get together, do these men still have what it takes 20 years after they were heroes? This is such a funny take on the adventurer heroes kind of stereotypes, and it has amazing characters. One of my favorite characters is actually Moog, who is one of the band's adventurer. He's a gay wizard who is so full of heart, so charming, but very clumsy. And you know what? A clumsy wizard is always dangerous for the people around him. It has amazing, really, characters, such a fun sense of humor. I love the fact that it follows older characters, older heroes, right, who all have had kids, who've lived their life, their back hurt, they are not as fit as they used to be, some of them have grown fat, they are not really super keen on leaving their nice comfortable home to go back into the world, trekking through a dangerous forest and killing monsters, right? But would they heed the call of their friend? Would they heed the call of the adventure? And would they put on the hero's mantle one more time? This is just the story. It's exploring the idea of what it means to be a legend, what it means to be a hero, but it does so with a sense of humor. It does so with a lot of heart. This is such a great one. I really enjoyed it. Can't recommend it enough if you're looking for a fast, fun, heartwarming read about a group of adventurers that just will make you smile the whole time, you know, and I really love this one. There's a second book that is in the same world, but it follows a different set of characters, so you can just read The King of Wilds and have this particular story contained. I will definitely read the second book at some point because I just enjoyed Nicholas Eames' writing so much, but I love those characters particularly well. Like I said, the main character, Clay Cooper, is a stereotypical barbarian. He's a little bit grumpy, but he has a good heart. Moog, the clumsy gay wizard, is such a joy. And there's other characters part of this band who also have just a lot of like heartfelt or funny endearing touches. So definitely loved The Kings of the Wild and would love to know again if you guys have read it or not. And that's what I'm gonna finish on about books. We're gonna talk about decks now, but before I move on to decks, let me know if you've read any of these books and if you have any recommendations for me. What are the books that you enjoyed reading lately? Let's chat in the comments. I love to read you guys. I love to chat, so let's have a good kiki in the comments. And now let's move on to decks. I told you in the intro, March was a great books month, and you've seen I read a lot of books and there was some fantastic hits. It was also a great decks month. I have found some amazing decks that potentially could very much become part of my yearly favorites. I'm gonna start with potentially my favorite one of the month actually. I have been obsessed with this deck. I've been using it all month long and I'm continuing to use it in the month of April. I don't want to let it go. I could very much see this one become part of my yearly favorite for 2025, and that is the Children of Lisa Tarot. This is by Alexia Huntington, who also goes as Xia Hunt, and this deck and I have an interesting, funny kind of relationship because I technically used to own this deck back in 2019, and at the time I didn't connect with it, but I didn't really give my chance to connect with it, and I ended up letting it go way too soon, right? It was definitely a mistake. At the time, I was going through a phase where if I wasn't bonding with a deck in weeks, I was like, no, I'm gonna let it go. I definitely do not do that now. I give myself much more time to decide as we can change, our taste evolve. Since I let it go, I massively regretted it. So last year, when this particular creator did a Kickstarter for another deck of hers, which is the Children of Ostara, I decided to back her newest Kickstarter and to pick up a copy of her first deck at the same time, as I had regretted letting go of this one ever since. And since receiving my Kickstarter of the Children of Ostara and the Children of Lisa, I have been unable to put the Children of Lisa down. So whilst it's technically her oldest deck and that I'm using the most, I've not really taken the time to bond with the Children of Ostara yet, because I'm just so in love with the Children of Lisa. So for those of you who are not familiar with this one, this is a deck that mixes fantasy and kind of like fae almost beings with nature. So the court cards and the majors are all very like people focused, but they all have either connection to animals or they have almost like fae characteristics. And then the minors are focused on animals. They're a little bit more pippish, which I think honestly is the reason why at the time, a few years ago, I let go of this one, because I thought I would not be able to read with it. Turns out years later, this is becoming a huge favorite. And so in this one, as you can see, the minors are divided by different kind of animals. So all of the cups are aquatic animals. For the swords, we have a lot of birds. For the pentacles, we have a lot of like animal with hooves and like rams and goats and things like that. And for the wands, we have a lot of felines and cats and panthers and lions. And as I was telling you guys, for the majors, we have more fae-like creatures, so it's almost blending humans with animals. The art style, first of all, the art style, you guys, by Xia Hunt is just so stunning. I cannot get over the fact that this might be one of my most beautiful decks now. Definitely up there as part of my most beautiful decks. I find her art style absolutely stunning. The court cards are so great. Every single queen is gorgeous. I think these might be my favorite queens in all of my other tarot decks. Every single one feels like she could be the main character of a story of which I would love to read the book. I adore the fact that most of the deck focuses on animals, because you guys know I'm a huge nature lover, and I'm just can't believe I let this go years ago, because now this is everything I love. It's fantasy, it's animals, it's gorgeous art style. There's literally not one thing I hate about this deck. And on top of that, the guidebook is fantastic, because for every single card, not only do you have the explanation as to what the card means, you have upward and reverse keywords, but for every single card on the left side you have poems. And you guys know I love poems in my guidebooks. It's literally one of those things that makes me so happy. Look at the Devil's poem. You think you own what's before your eyes. You think you're too pure for greed and lies. So now laugh and drink, you're sure to be merry. The weight of your sins you're later to carry. Falling further, you'll think your splendor sublime, while I wait in the shadows, just biding my time. oof, how good is that, right? Every single poem, even for the minor, is so great. I am obsessed. There's literally not one bad thing I can say about this deck. Art style, amazing. The way it reads, so good. I've literally couldn't put it down. I've done career reading for this, spiritual reading, love reading, day-to-day reading. This can do it all. The guidebook is fantastic. I love the poems. I love all the choices of animals, and I even love the more pippish kind of nature of the deck, which is it's not really pippish. It's just that it's very different from traditional RWS imagery, and I appreciate that. So beautiful. Would never part with this now, and this definitely could become part of my yearly favorites because I've just been obsessed. I have to push myself to use another deck specifically for me. I've used it for myself consistently throughout March. I'm using it in April, and you know when you have a deck and you have to force yourself to use something else, that's when you know you're holding on to something special. That's exactly what's happening for me in this deck. It's just a love story, you guys. I'm really obsessed. Look how beautiful this Ace of Wands is. I cannot. It's too gorgeous. So this has been my main deck for myself for March. It has read beautifully. I've used it in a reading for you guys on my pick card channel. I can't even remember what now because I've filmed so many videos. Maybe it was for April, actually, for my April monthly reading, and it read like a dream. It's just a joy. I'm so glad I have this deck now back in my hands. This was definitely my biggest mistake in terms of buyer tarot collecting, letting go of this deck back then, and I definitely regretted it a long time. So I'm so glad I finally have it in my hands again. It's really gorgeous. And the cardstock is matte for those of you who want to know about cardstock. It's more rose petal, but I don't find it difficult to shuffle. I know some people struggle. I don't find it sticky at all. I think it's definitely gorgeous cardstock, but just be aware if you don't like that rose petal finish, this is what it has. It has matte edging and these beautiful backs, which are the same as the backs from the Children of Ostara, so that's great. I really hope she's gonna do every single Sabbath because I would buy them. I would buy them. She's one of those creators that I'm now, every time she does something, I'm like, yeah, take my money. I will support you for sure. Like I told you guys, I've been so in love with this one that I've not really given a chance to the Children of Ostara yet, which is more plant-based, versus this one, which is more animal-based. I will get around to it potentially either in April or May. The other main favorite deck for me, for my own personal use in the month of March, was this one, the Hilda Tarot. This is the Gigam edition. This is a deck that you can get printed on Make playing cards. For ages, it was out of print, and then the creator put it back on Make playing cards, so now we can get it printed ourselves. It was compiled by the creator who goes as a Regretti Spaghetti on Instagram, but originally, obviously, Hilda is a pinup creation from, I think, the 60s, but don't quote me on that. Created by Duane Bryers. So Hilda, very famous pinup icon, which for me in this tarot format makes this the perfect kind of self-care deck because Hilda is just so joyful, right? She's a pinup icon and she's really standing out in this kind of pinup style due to her being a little bit more curvy, a little bit more curvaceous, and she is such a joy, okay? Hilda is an icon for me of joy, of feeling very confident and bold and just being yourself, not giving a shit what people think. And this deck represents all of that. I think the person who curated this deck has done such a fantastic job at picking pre-existing Hilda images and turning them into tarot. All the cards make sense to me, and reading with this deck just makes me happy, brings a smile to my face. I find Hilda so joyful, it just makes me smile. For me, this has become a self-care deck because reading with this deck, it reminds me to enjoy life, to pet my dogs, to eat the slice of cake, to go outside, feel the sun on my face, and to not care too much about things that are not that important. Look at this High Priestess. How many times have you seen a High Priestess smiling and happy? Never. We always see the High Priestess as being this like secretive, mysterious, depressed person. Here, seeing her smiling and laugh, I love that. I love that so much. The star card is so beautiful. I just love the fact that Hilda is full of sass and a whole lot of ass, let's be real. She's curvaceous, she is cute, she's clumsy, she's a klutz, and I love that as well because everything is taken with a big dose of laughter and of not taking anything too seriously. I just adore it, and I think that every single choice of the card, of the pre-existing art style that's been curated, makes so much sense. Such a joy. I'm so glad that this was put back for us to be able to print, as this was one of my unicorn decks I had wanted for ages, and it was out of print for a really long time, so the fact that it's back on Make Playing Cards makes me super happy. I love the backs, so cute. And like I told you, this has become my go-to self-care deck. I've actually used it in a self-care reading on my readings channel, so I'll make sure to leave that in the cards if you want to see how it reads. I created a self-care reading where every single pile is a different spread, so every pile is on a different theme. It's all about self-care but different, and self-love but different themes, different spreads, and this was one of the decks I used, and it was perfect, honestly, to read for that. And for me, it's been my go-to. Look at this Ten of Swords. She's getting bitten by the bees. It's so great. And I just love the little dog in all of the cards. I mean, she's living her best life with her dog, and honestly, that's goals for me. That's how I want to live my life too. Me and my dogs against the world. That's the vibe. I'm gonna continue using it in the month of April. Every time I want to do a little self-love, self-care kind of reading, it's absolutely perfect. She's just a joy. Look at this tower. It's brilliant. Absolutely a good mood deck now for me, Hilda Tarot. Love it so much. Another favorite deck this month, which I've actually enjoyed reading not just for me but for other people as well, has been the Summer Tarot. I picked this one up from Vermillon Collection on Etsy, but they have their own website. I think they're like based in China, if I'm not mistaken, or at least they stock a lot of Chinese decks and Chinese creators, and they have free shipping, which you know is like my favorite two English word. When I hear free shipping, my heart flutters. So I love Vermillon Collection for that. And this one was one I had my eye on as soon as it came out, because it's giving that kind of like anime, cutesy, a little bit manga inspired kind of vibe, and I love that very much. You guys know I'm a chaotic tech goblin, and so I like creepy and cute and historical and modern and fantasy and everything in between, but I definitely have a soft spot for anything that's a little bit anime, manga. That is one of my favorite things in deck. The backs, not my favorite. I don't understand. You're gonna see the front and the backs are like two different worlds. It feels like the back should belong to another deck completely. I don't know what is going on. This is giving me St. Patrick's Day or Irish leprechaun, kind of four-leaf clovers are about, but it does not go with the deck at all. But you know, I can forgive it. It's not ugly. You're gonna see it does not make sense with the front of the deck, but you know, whatever. The sides are plain, which is fine by me. And what I adore about this one is the art style, which again is very reminiscent of animes and mangas, some kind of content that I really enjoy. So this is almost taking you to this particular island where people are living their life during the summer. Some people are working, some people are on holidays. This is called the Summer Tarot, so obviously people are hanging out by the beach and eating ice cream. Some of them are off school, some of them are still having to go through their career. It's modern, but it's modern with a little bit of whimsy, I would say. Look at this Seven of Cups, for example, and it's just so well thought out. I think super smart, the choices that I've done, like the Hierophant with the teacher. I really like that. Very relatable. We can all understand. The world is the calendar, taking the days until you are on holiday. I love that. Eight of Swords, someone who has had an accident and who broke their leg. I mean, perfect for a modern interpretation of the Eight of Swords. I think that's really smart. Ten of Cups, who have someone who graduated. Again, I think that's relatable, modern, very smart. Page of Wands, he is going fishing, super cute. Seven of Wands, we have someone who is at a concert. The Magician is a painter. I love that. Really beautiful. King of Wands, he's welcoming you to the resort, to the hotel. I love that. You know, giving that boss energy, very King of Wands. The Ten of Pentacles, we have this gorgeous picnic, and look at this cute corgi. I cannot, there's 2 corgis in the decks, and you guys, I love corgis, they're some of my favorite dogs. Five of Wands, look at that, so cool, right? Really, really cool. So this is a great modern deck. Modern interpretation, interesting interpretation that are a little bit unique, not stereotypical RWS, although if you know the RWS, you'd have no problem reading with it. I think they've done a fantastic choice of including tarot into our day-to-day modern life. And on top of that, the art style is just so gorgeous. I love, love, love this particular kind of like anime, manga art style. It just speaks to my soul. I'm just really enjoying this deck, not just for myself, but for reading for others. I've read mostly with this one when I was reading for other people. This was in my pick a card reading called You Have a Message or A Message Has Arrived for You. I think that's what I called it. I used a lot of oracle cards, and then I used this one exclusively for the whole 3 piles, and it read like a dream. It was such a good reader. I really enjoyed it, and I had a few comments from people as well, and DMs of people who said you really loved seeing it in action. Definitely a deck that seems to be getting more popular, which I'm happy to see. Look at this Knight of Pentacles, so cute, right? Really smart, I think. Someone working in the office. Yes, it's just really great. Two of Wands. That's me. That's where I want to spend all of my time for sure. The King of Pentacles playing video games is so sweet. Really like this particular modern deck, specifically for any kind of like day-to-day reading. For career reading, it was great. I've done a career reading for a friend. It was really good. I did like day-to-day life reading relating to day-to-day matters, read like a dream. It's a really nice one. So that's the Summer Tarot. I didn't share the guidebook. The guidebook is good actually. We have for the major, explains a little bit what's going on the card and upward and reverse meanings. And again, you have the same thing for the minors, except you don't have the images, but you have the same amount of information. The front is in Chinese and the back is in English. So again, you're not left to your own devices. Good guidebook. Great art style, interesting modern reinterpretation set in this kind of like summertime island. I really love this one. Let's talk about a deck I've had for over a year that I didn't really quite manage to bond with until now. So I enjoyed it already last year, but I hadn't fully explored it to the extent of its potential until this particular month, and that is the Tabletop Tarot. This is a deck I had gotten at the time on Etsy, and it's by Brandy York. Though it's an indie deck, this is inspired by tabletop games, Dungeons and Dragons, role-playing games, specifically shows like Critical Role, which you guys, I finally am up to date with season 3 of Critical Role. I've watched all of campaign 3. I watched all of the XU Calamity. I watched Divergence, which made me cry. Anything with Brennan Lee Mulligan anyway, because I'm such a big Dimension 20 fan, is peak storytelling in my book. But I will say, watching campaign 3 of Critical Role, I also fell in love with all of the Critical Role cast. So that definitely has been a highlight of the last few months, and has been one of the reasons why I decided to revisit this particular deck. For those of you guys who are fans of Critical Role, Dungeons and Dragons, role-playing games, you're gonna be recognizing either characters or I would say stereotypes and archetypes from these kinds of games. We have goblins, we have elves, we have tieflings, and you know, all of the different races that you can play when you play Dungeons and Dragons or when you play Baldur's Gate and all of that. Some of the characters are definitely inspired by characters from Critical Role, which now I've finished campaign 3, I can recognize. But even if you're just someone who enjoys fantasy at large, you will, I think, enjoy this one, even regardless of the whole tabletop RPG kind of vibe. You'll recognize a lot of the archetypes, characters, races that even fantasy books and fantasy video games use, like goblins and tieflings, elves, and the such. The Emperor Goblin is great. That's my favorite card. I feel seen. I'm an Aries and I'm a goblin, so that makes me so happy. That's my favorite card of the deck. I love him so much. Revisiting this deck this year. I realized that at the time when I got this, I was like, yeah, it's fantasy inspired, and it reminds me of shows I love to watch, of books I love to read, so it's cute, right? And I didn't really think any more than that just it was a representation of a fan base and a kind of book and storytelling that I enjoy. World building and all of that take you to another world. I'm a huge fantasy lover, so this was more a way for me to tap into that without thinking any more deeply than that. What I realized in the last couple of months using this deck again, deciding to revisit it, is that this is so great for exploring people's personality. And you might think, how can you explore people's personality using something that's fantasy based, using something that's based on people and races and characters that are not real? Well, it's because it helps you to detach from such like strict characters from our day-to-day, but use potentially archetypes and characteristics and behaviors that are originally based on fantasy characters, but that you can apply to day-to-day real people. And I find this work really, really interesting, and I realized that this particular deck is actually so great for exploring behaviors, for exploring qualities, for exploring people's personalities and things like that. For example, if you are picking a card where you see a rogue, for example, you could think that the person you're doing a reading for is someone quite discreet. Maybe they keep their card close to their chest. Maybe they don't share their secrets to people. Maybe they're very private. Maybe they like to move around the world in a way that's very subtle. They don't like to make a lot of noise. They might prefer to be on their own rather than being surrounded by people. There's so much you can pull out from those like fantasy kind of characters and archetypes to apply to like regular day-to-day people's behaviors and qualities. That is just such a fun exercise, and I've realized that this deck works so great for that. So I've really enjoyed this particular deck and found its use now being so good to explore personalities and behaviors and traits and characters using fantasy kind of characters, but tie that to day-to-day people. And this one has been such a joy for me now that I've found a particular specific use for it. Of course, it's very RWS. If you guys are familiar with the RWS, you'll have no problem reading with this. And again, if you guys are fans of shows like Critical Role, you will recognize some of the characters. If you're a fan of D&D, things like that, you'll recognize some of the classes, some of the particular races. But even if you're just a fantasy lover at heart, I think you would recognize a lot of the archetypes, beings that we might see in stories. Joy, and I'm really glad that I found this great use for it, which is almost a little bit psychological and such a fun way to tie one of my passion, fantasy, with readings that are a little bit more based around psychology and exploring behaviors. In terms of the guidebook, there's no pictures, but we have a little bit of a text for each of the cards. It's enough for sure. You're not left to your own devices. It tells you who or what is depicted, if it's a warrior, if it's a warlock, if it's a barbarian, if it's a paladin. So again, can be a nice way to tie a story. This would be also a great deck for people who like creative writing, for storytellers out there, and of course for all of my gamers out there. You would, I think, enjoy this one. Quickly, let's talk about the Forest Spirit in Print Tarot, because I've talked about this deck pretty much every single video since I've started the year, so I'm not gonna go too much into it, but this was a Kickstarter I backed last year. Then it was sold by the creators, and it went out of print, and then Tevada picked it up again, and now I don't know if it's in print or out of print. Like I said, I got I backed the Kickstarter months ago. It seemed that at some point Tevada was selling it directly, and I won't go too much into it because I've talked about this one so much in pretty much every single video. But this is a huge favorite. Another one that you can expect, I think, to see in my yearly favorites of 2025, because I'm obsessed with this cute Ghibli style art. It follows this little girl who has stepped through a portal and is now in this magical forest land with sprite and fairies and spirits. And so we follow her along as she meets different beings. She's always accompanied by this bird familiar, and this is just adorable. It is sweet, it's joyful, but the heavy hitting cards are still heavy hitting, which I appreciate. It's not just cute, it also has retained the essence of the tarot card. It's absolutely beautiful. I really adore this kind of like, again, Ghibli art style. It makes me so happy. It's whimsical, it's magical, it's everything I want in a deck, and I am obsessed. So I just wanted to continue telling you guys how much I enjoy it. It's just such a joy. The cardstock is really strange. It's almost plasticky, so that's one thing I don't love. It feels very bendy and almost a little bit like sliding everywhere, so I don't love that. But this was one of the cheapest Kickstarters I backed. I think I paid less than 30 euros for this one all together, and it came with a deck, it came with postcards and badges, and it came in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It was such a fast Kickstarter, great experience. If these creators who, by the way, who did that? They're called US Star Wheels. I think they're based in China. US Star Wheels game system. If they ever do, and look at this cool box. How cool is that? It's cut out, so great. If they ever do another Kickstarter, I 100% would consider backing it, because this was a great experience. One of the best, fastest, easiest Kickstarters I've ever backed in my life, and I'm so happy I went with this one because I really adore the art style. I'm not sure if it's out of print now or if you can get it on Tevada. If I can find a link for you guys, I'll put it in the description box. Let's move on to a newer deck to my collection that brought a lot of joy again in the month of March. Let's talk about the Granny's Postcard Tarot. This is a deck I bought for myself as a little birthday present, like a treat from me to me. My birthday was at the end of March, so at the beginning of March, I put an order to Salon des Arcanes, Nicolas' shop, who's based in France. He specializes in indie decks, but he stocks mass market decks as well. I put an order for a couple of decks for my birthday. This was one of them. The main one I kept to open on my birthday at the end of March, but this one I decided to start using in March because I'm an impatient Aries, you guys. What else can I tell you? I have zero patience. So I've been using this one throughout March and I really enjoy it. This is by Pentagram Publishing. I believe they're based in Eastern Europe. Before I get into it, I need to tell you about the cardstock, which when I did my haul, I told you guys was so weird, and it's still something I need to mention because it's really, I've never seen anything like it before. It feels like sandpaper. There's texture on this cardstock, and I think you can hear it. And it doesn't even scratch, but it just feels like sandpaper, like there's texture on it. It is the most unique, strange cardstock I've ever touched. I've never seen that before, you guys, ever. And I have over 300 decks by now. This is the strangest cardstock I ever touched. But you know what? It's not bad. It shuffles really nicely. It's just textured, so strange. Anyway, this is based on pre-existing postcards, and so due to that you're gonna see there's very different styles, which on paper is everything I should not like. Okay, this deck and I should not get along because normally I really don't vibe with decks that have very like different art styles. When we have collaborative decks with different artists, anything like that, a lot of the time I like the cohesion and I can't read with them because, I don't know, my brain just goes blank. I am normally not someone who vibes with art or decks that showcase art that are very varied and different, and this one is super different. You're gonna see we have some that are more cartoonish, some that are more like paintings, some are almost like photographs, and some are super cute, and some are more rooted in satire, some are very humorous, and some are very serious. So there's a big varied art style and vibes coming from these postcards that were used, like pre-existing postcards, and yet this deck reads so well. So this is one of the most unique decks in my collection because, and definitely one of the most surprising, because on paper we should not get along. On paper this should not be my vibe, right? And yet when I read with this, I get amazing readings. And the reason why I picked this up actually is because I saw a few people. One of them was Yena from Soul Shadow Tarot. Then I saw someone on Instagram, and every reading was so good. And I was like, man, I need this deck because I think the interpretation on the card are really unique and quite cool. And I was like, I need to see if it reads as well for me as I'm seeing other people read with it. And you know what? It does. I use this deck to do some readings for friends, and it spilled some serious tea. This deck for fortune telling, for predictive reading, for hardcore divination, that let's find out what's gonna happen. Let's have a look at what this situation is all about. My god, sharpshooter, it was a sniper. We were shook, okay? We were shook us by the revelation that this deck gave us. 100% accurate, 100% came out true. Honestly, rocked to our core. It was eerie how accurate this was. I used it in pick a card readings on my channel. I think it was for April, I think, months ahead. It was great. I used it for myself every single week for like, again, fortune telling, kind of what's going to happen this week. It read like a dream. So it's such a strange one for me. I really hate some of the cards. Like, some of the cards are really not my vibe. Some of them I adore. Like, this moon card is super cute. So it's a mixed bag of cards I love. Like, even this Three of Wands I think is adorable. Some of them I really don't like. And again, it's like on paper I shouldn't like how strange and varied this is. Almost a little bit cringe and kitsch, and yet it reads so good. So such a surprise for me, this deck. I can't deny how great of a reader it is, and I'm definitely gonna continue using this one for the next few months because it just works. I can't tell you otherwise, it just works, okay? There's decks like that you can't put your finger on it, it just works, and this one just reads like a dream, specifically for fortune telling. It's giving almost Sibylla vibes. If you guys have read with Sibylla, you know exactly what I mean. It's straight to the point, no bullshit, very honest, sometimes borderline rude, because you're like, wow, I didn't know if I needed to hear that, and yet 100% accurate. I'm really enjoying it. So I did not think I would. It was almost like this was for me. I was doing it for science, okay? When I got this deck, I was like, I'm going to do it for science. I'm going to try it out. I'm seeing people enjoying this one, but on paper, it's not for me. So I'm going to do it for science, for the experiment. And the experiment was a huge success. Even the backs, I don't like them. They're okay, but it's like, I don't know, not the most fun. But you know what? I love this deck. Look, Seven of Swords is so fun. Some of the cards are full of satire, lots of humor that is borderline sometimes, but then you have old pictures. There's a bit of everything, honestly. This one is cute though. Page of Pentacles, that's what's on the box. And I love the Knight of Wands. So cute. That reminds me of like my grandma's books that she had. For the leaflet, very straight to the point. We have like 2 to 3 sentences for each of the cards. One side in English, one side in Russian, I think. So very basic, but you get a little bit. And so that is the Granny's Postcard Tarot. I think I'm gonna wrap it up with a tarot, and I'm gonna keep my oracle decks for a separate video because I've been talking already for way too long and I'm starting to flare up. I'm starting to have a lot of back pain and everything. So I'm gonna wrap it up now with the last tarot deck. And what I'm gonna be doing is I'll be doing a separate video for my oracle deck. I haven't done a video about oracle decks I've been loving lately. I think all of 2025 I've not done one yet, and normally I try to do them every trimester at least. So I'll be doing one soon to cover all of the oracle decks I've been enjoying. So this way this video won't be too long and I can lie down before I'm in too much pain. But I wanted to finish just giving a little shout out to this cutie of a deck, which was a favorite already last year that I'm still enjoying so much, and that is the Little Avatar Tarot. This is by Push Kitty, who is an indie creator based in the US, I think. I have the pocket edition because that's the only one I could find at the time, but I would totally love the regular size. If I can get my hands on it at some point, I would 100% go for it. Normally I avoid having decks in several editions. I don't do pocket size, regular size. I don't do backup copies of decks. I have way too many decks as it is. I mean, not too many. I love all of my decks dearly, but you guys know what I mean. I have a lot of decks, over 300 at this point. So if I was on top of that to be doing backup copies and pockets and all of that, I'd be surrounded. This is definitely one where if I could get my hands on a regular copy, I would keep the regular copy and potentially let this one go. And so this, as the name suggests, is based on the Avatar The Last Airbender anime, which if you guys have never watched, I need to tell you right now, as soon as you finish this video, go on Netflix. There's all the seasons on Netflix. Put on episode 1 and enjoy, okay? You will not regret. This is another one where so many of my friends were like, you need to watch it, Marine, you will enjoy it. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it at some point. And then I started watching it and I was obsessed. And now it's my turn to be that person to tell everyone, you need to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yes, technically it's meant for kids, but let me tell you, the subject that it approaches are very much relating to grown-up stories. The characters are fantastic. The story is great. It's a fantastic, fantastic story set up in a world where different part of the world, different populations are able to master different elements. We have the airbenders who can manipulate air. We have the earthbenders. We have the waterbenders and we have the firebenders, and the firebenders have slowly but surely colonized all the other nations through war, through colonization, which is a huge theme of this particular anime, the cost of war, the cost of colonization, the cost of eradicating certain population. So the Fire Nation has slowly but surely taken over. Every generation there is a chosen one that appears who can actually master all 4 elements. So not just one, but actually all 4. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, we follow Aang, this little guy who is actually the Avatar, the one who can master all 4 elements, and he is tasked with stopping the war, with introducing harmony against in the world, with trying to heal this world from the cost of colonization, of war, and he's helped by other characters who are different benders in his quest to learn how to master all the elements, and in his quest to restore harmony and hope and peace in his world. This is Aang, the avatar that we follow, who originally is an airbender, but who, alongside the story, will learn how to master all 4 elements thanks to the people he meets along the way. It's a story of hope. It's a story about war. It's a story about the cost of being the chosen one. It explores that really well. There's themes of chosen family. There are themes of redemption. When you've done really bad things, how can you turn around to try and do good into the world? And on top of that, it's really funny. There are some spiritual themes, there are some deep themes, but it's also obviously an anime, right? So there's also a lot of joy and some funny moments. That's what the anime is about, if you guys were not familiar. But this deck follows that, and I absolutely adore the anime. I've watched it, all of it, already twice. And this deck is absolutely a love letter to all of us who love Avatar: The Last Airbender, as it does such a fantastic job at selecting the right characters for the right court cards. Every single card relates to a moment in the show or a specific character, and it all makes sense. You can tell Pushkili is a fan because you can tell that they've spent a lot of time figuring out who or what scene should embody each tarot archetype. It's really, really well done, and I've enjoyed using this one because this month I was reading for my friend and her boyfriend, who are also huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, and whilst this looks cute and almost childlike, we actually did some deep career reading for my friend's boyfriend, and you know what? It slapped. Like, this was so good. And though it is, you know, anime inspired and all of that, it's cutesy and childlike, this read like a dream. It was such a powerful, important reading for a career reading, and it blew us all away, and it was such a good part of my month that I wanted to shout it out. So again, don't mistake the cutesy deck thinking they're not gonna go deep. Just because something can look cute and childlike does not mean it can't hit hard, okay? This one definitely does. And of course, if you're reading for people who are appreciative of the show, who are fans of the show, who can recognize the characters, then it's even better. I wanted to shout it out. It was a favorite last year. It's still a favorite. I take this one everywhere with me. It's one of those decks that I always have when I'm out and about. I enjoy it a lot. To finish on that, like I told you guys, I'm going to be doing a separate videos for my Oracle decks because I'm starting to flare up. But now it's your turn. Let me know what what are the tarot decks, oracle decks books that you've been enjoying lately, the last few weeks, last few months. What are your current favorites? If you have any of the decks I've shared, then please feel free to let me know how you use them, how you enjoy them. And until my next video, I want to say a huge thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. I'm sending you so much good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!